how have you seen the education system change, from to kind of sort of where it has evolved to here in 2022, as
Mhm.
far as, the content that can be taught, the way it can be taught, and like and back to again, the content that can be taught.
Mhm. Well, you know, being educated in Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama. So I want to say that because that's my bias, y'all. That's the lens, that's the filter that everything's going to come through from the first part.
Hmm.
I feel like education has changed. See, when I was a kid, my parents really did a good number on me. They sent me to a private school first, my first 4 years of education. And I'm going to admit this, I actually think because they started me out like that, that set me on a different trajectory. Because them sending me to that private, it was a Christian private school. I had to be
Hmm.
bussed across town. Them sending, age 4 to 8, I was sitting in classes with people from China, Japan, India, parts of India, I should say, parts of South America, Canada. It's like, but as a kid, I didn't know. I just noticed that none of these kids look like me, even if they're the black kids. They still don't look like me. We got different faces,
Yeah.
and we really had a good time learning. I think that that is still here. The private schools, I know that that is here. As a child, what I didn't know is, even though I don't think it's wrong to go to private school and have access to a private school. When my parents took me out of that school, put me in the public elementary school, so I went 9, 10 in a public elementary school that was in a black neighborhood. I noticed that it was different. It was
Hmm.
way different. I was enthusiastic, and I'm not saying that that school was worse than the one I went to. I'm just saying what happened. I still recall my enthusiasm to learn, and it was contagious because other people were hungry to learn too. But when I went to Princeton Elementary, I went to Alliance Christian School, which I don't think is open anymore. It's changed now. I went to Princeton Elementary, and it was mixed. There were black and brown and white, kids there.
Hmm.
Most of the teachers were black, but it was different. It was like the kids were, at least to me at that time, they were tougher, they were meaner. I didn't really get into many fights in the private school. It was like a fight every day in the public school. Um, I mean, but I still got in the fight. It was interesting in both environments. I noticed that there were still bullies.
Mm.
There was still ignorant, children, there. In both environments, people who want to exercise power. I guess that doesn't have an age if you really think
Yeah.
about it. Selfishness doesn't have an age on
Yeah.
it, and greed doesn't have an age on it either. Actually, um, but I still learned. But I just noticed that my passion for it wasn't reflected with all of my classmates.
Mm.
That's the thing that I noticed. It wasn't reflected with in the same way. In the same way. Um, Middle school, black middle school, I noticed that that kind of continued. And really, but what I'm glad at is that majority of my education, K through 12, was all in black schools. See, so only 4 through 8 was in the private white school, if you will. The rest of them were, or majority white school, and then the rest of them were all majority black schools.
Mm.
I leave there. I go to Alabama A&M. I went to an HBCU, so continue with that black education, and that was a different experience. That was a wonderful experience. Go Bulldogs! A&M, A&M, A&M. I love my school, man. And then, but while I was there, I got the opportunity to be an exchange student and go to the University of Georgia.
Ooh.
And then here again, it was like that same comparison. Only now I'm almost an adult, I'm like, or at least I'm a teenager, really. Is that A&M is different than University of Georgia? Both Bulldogs, but there's something different, and you could tell that the resources were different. UGA had a lot of resources. Something that I noticed though when I was at UGA, and even though I had great professors at UGA, great
Yeah.
professors at UGA, excuse me, but when I was at Alabama A&M, now this is my opinion now, okay? This is my opinion that I'm about to give you because I would
Okay.
never say that it's a fact, just my opinion. But I felt like the teachers worked harder to help us at A&M than they did at UGA. Okay, I
Mm.
just I just I just felt that. But then maybe it was
Do
the
you feel like
teachers.
that they do you feel like they had to?
No, I
No?
felt like
Okay.
they wanted to.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why I say that, because at
Mhm.
both institutions I had white teachers.
Mm.
That's the thing. I was educated by white men at both institutions. Okay, but at Alabama A&M, it just seemed like the professors just seemed to take an extra time out with you. Now, here's why I'm saying that, because at Alabama A&M, I didn't have to necessarily ask for help. I mean, I did every so often, but I didn't have to ask for help. My professors would give it to me. It's like they could tell you, I saw you performed in that test. You need to come by my office. When I was at UGA, it wasn't like that. It was kind of like every person for themselves. And I still remember, I only had two professors who were like that with me, Klaus Steinbeck and Dr.
Mhm.
Warren Flick. I still remember that those are the only two professors who were like that with me, where they said, come by my office. And they said, come by my office for a couple of reasons. And I appreciate that. They knew that I was the only black kid in the school. And they were like, so if I can help you, please let me help you. If I can
Mhm.
make this sound a certain way. And they were right, because it wasn't that I wasn't smart like the other students there. We just didn't talk the same. We didn't teach the same.
Mhm.
We just kind of taught a little differently. But I did well there. Left, did some work with the Forest Service for a little bit. That was wonderful. That was an education living in Montana. I definitely learned a lot being there. And then Iowa State soon after that, to get my master's. And that was another education. And there I was the only black person after a couple of people graduated in the department, just like I was the only black person in the school. When I was at UGA, I was the only black person in the city and county when I was in Montana. And so I'm saying all of that on purpose because that's a real education to me. Because you're learning, if you learn how to work with people, that's another education. That's what I had to learn. I had to learn
Mhm.
how to be in a place without losing myself. Um, Worked in urban forestry, went back home, the last place I wanted to be. But to learn how to be with adult parents as an adult, that's an education.
Mm.
Living back in my mom and dad's house, and when they have the rules, like, hey, you had to pay rent or pay, this, and I'm having to figure things out, but I don't have a job, yet.
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure things out, but I was able to get an intern, land another little intern, and then fortunately ended up getting my next big job at NC State where we met,
Yep.
and I was the diversity director there. And while at NC State, I did earn my doctorate in adult education. Dr. Sue Bracken was my chair, and Susan Barcinas now, excuse me. And that was a wonderful experience. That was a wonderful experience. About 85% of it, working with her was all great, but there were other parts, excluding working with her, that were not so fun. But I learned a lot, and excuse me. After that, in my opinion, having a doctorate, being African American or Black or Indigenous, depending
Mhm.
on if people recognize their history or not, but I do, um, or their heritage, I should say. When you get these degrees, it's a little bit differently. Now, look, I am gonna say this, and this is not about you getting your master's, or it's not about, and I'm not trying to like disrespect people, but I am a little bit concerned for our education and educators now, because I kind of feel like these advanced degrees that people are getting, it's almost just like a windmill. These advanced degrees are at the level of a BS now, because one of the things that so here's one thing that was different, at least I felt when I went to school versus now when people go to school. See,
Mhm.
when I was in school, I felt like you had to meet the standard to get in.
Yeah.
They didn't really make too many provisions for people. Now you know that they did, but
Yeah.
it's like to me, I couldn't apply to school and then have a conversation with someone to get me some money later. It's like what you applied to. We didn't give it to you when you came in. That's it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I kind of feel like I know people had it rougher than me. Someone always has it harder than you, but I feel like even though I had a scholarship, the way that I had to learn and be educated kind of made me tougher. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Like, because because just because you talk to a professor don't mean he, she, or they is going to change your grade. And
Yeah.
that's where I came from. I came from that era, like, no, it ain't really no conversation. What I give you is is what you have.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's one of the things that has changed. But in some ways, I think in many ways, that's a good thing that has changed, that people can converse and then go, I think I want to challenge this, so on and so forth. So I think that there's more opportunity to shift in
Mhm.
education. There's more opportunity to be heard. But that's one of the things I think that has changed, is that, and I'm, like I said, it's my opinion. People will, go ahead and disagree with me. No problem. But I do think that a lot of these schools are actually easier to get into.
Mhm.
I think that
Do you think
mhm.
Do you think that that type of teaching or that type of leadership um, breeds entitlement?
Yes.
I think
Hmm.
so too.
Yeah.
I see it at the high schools,
Hmm.
and it's like, it's like I don't know if that's a good thing. I do
Hmm.
think that the part that you said about students being able to challenge, I do think that that part is good,
Hmm.
because education, you know, however you feel about it, if you're not on board with education and you're more about the entrepreneur side or about going a different direction, and you
Hmm.
not don't really care about grades, then I mean, is it more important that the student learn the information, or is it more important that the first grade sticks? You know what I mean? Like back in
Hmm.
the day, when you
Hmm.
talking about the first grade sticks,
Hmm.
we ain't no conversation. If you do have a conversation, there's no guarantee that the grade is going to be changed. But nowadays,
Right.
the grade may be changed, or there's a conversation. So not saying that
Hmm.
it's more pushback, but students kind of know in certain spaces that hey, I'm gonna have a second try. So maybe I don't have to push as hard. I'm gonna get some help. I'm gonna get some information, and then
Hmm.
my grade's gonna be better the second time. I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm just,
Hmm.
kind of, just thinking, kind of thinking out loud right now.
Well, no, well, see, I think that there's so there's something else I think that's changed over time,
Mhm.
and that is the the not assumption is not the word. I'm trying to think of. It's like, okay, here we go. When I was coming up, I didn't always hear that I was going to college.
Mhm.
So you see, so it wasn't like that. Like, I didn't know in my head, oh, I'm going to college. You see what I'm saying? Even though I come from formally educated parents, both my mother and my father, both educated, both technically highly educated too. Dad got involved with the medical industry. My mom, multiple degrees as an educator. My mom, however, became an entrepreneur. She
Mm.
retired from teaching and she became an entrepreneur. But let me just finish the point that I'm making. See, when I was coming up, I knew that a lot of people that I graduated with weren't going to college, but that didn't mean that they weren't going to be successful. You see what I'm saying? It just meant that they
Yeah.
were probably going to go to work or do, like you did, my brother, they're going to go off to the service, as we say, the service.
Yeah.
So you had other options. I think the issue now is that we're almost saying, and I think this is a problem, that it's like you have to go to college to be successful, which that's still not true. But I
Mhm.
feel like it's almost like it's more of an expectation. That's it. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like it's more of an expectation now that people are going to go to college. So now college is so expensive, you need money to go to college. So then if you're not performing well in school, ooh, I need to make sure I get this grade, man, because I'm trying to get to, do you see what I'm saying? You see it,
Mhm.
see, so it's like so much of I
Whole
feel
bunch of
like
different layers.
it's a lot of layers now. So I
Yeah.
think that that's the other thing that's changed. It's almost like
Mm.
there's this expectation. And that's why I said what I said about people getting all of these degrees, and it's almost like reducing BSs and MSs and even doctorates, like
Mhm.
it's minimal, because I'm gonna just be real with you now. This is what I am gonna sound like a jerk. I don't think we should have this many people getting master degrees. I don't think
Mm.
we should have this many people getting doctorate degrees. I don't even think we should have this many people getting BS degrees.
It kind of dilutes it. Is that
Yeah,
what you
dilutes
think?
it. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
because um see, if you go back and study the original version of the university or the university, you couldn't apply to a university. You had to be invited.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Okay, that's the original version of a university. You don't apply. So you're invited because there's something about you that stands out in you and your community or your wherever you were, and then they'd invite you to come and be among this special group. And it's not that they were rich. You see, it's not that that's what it was. It was that you had access to, you could probably say privileged knowledge, but it's like you learn these things that's supposed to make it easier for us to engage with each other. So then you go back to your community to help make them better. So then that community
Mm.
can work with this community. You see what I'm saying? And now, we have, to me, this education structure where you can apply. And the thing is, if you can apply and get the conditions changed, then, in my opinion, that reduces the quality of what you're getting and even how you're getting in. Because now it's not about, to me, it's not necessarily about what you bring to the table. It's about who you know.
Mm.
It's not, about your To me, it's not about your development. It's, it's like, who have you spoken to? Did you
Mm.
say it the right way? You see, so now it's about, so it's like now I got the word. So it's like it's become political instead of being about actually education and about serving communities
Mm.
and helping people. And then, and so that's the reason why I'm going there, saying that it kind of reduces the quality. But I'm not saying I'm not saying,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that people don't deserve to be educated. I'm not saying people don't deserve to have degrees. But then watch this. I remember when my parents were in school, when it was when they were younger, when it was hard to get a job, right? They figured then, well, then I guess I need to go back to school.
Yeah.
Now is if it's hard to get a job, okay, then I guess I need to go back to school. You see, so it's almost like going back to school now has become a job,
Yeah.
and so so I just think that the way that we do education now is more business and
Hmm.
is more like a windmill,
Yeah.
and so so I just encourage people to, like, just to think about that, and just to ask yourself, wow, am I part of a mill now?
Yeah.
What I'm saying? Like, am I really learning something so I can contribute to society? Because I'm going to tell you, if I'm not saying people should make provisions to bring people in, because you should. We never know what people's circumstances are and all of that, but um, if you can always, and I'm glad that this didn't happen to me. It's not comfortable what I'm about to say, but it's real. If you can always squirm and squeeze your way out, you're going to stunt you're going to stunt your maturation.
Mm.
You are not going to grow. The truth is, you don't grow when everything works out most of the times. You really grow up when you have to figure out how to do something.
Yeah.
And to me, when I was in school, that's what we had to do. We had to figure it out, man. My best friend in life is here with me. She's a doctorate now, and learning a lesson that, and I had to learn a hard lesson of, and it's a lesson that I think everyone who gets a doctorate has to learn. Uh, and I'm gonna say it like this: a true doctor will
Hmm.
always have moments every year, every semester, where there's nothing you can do but work through it.
Mm.
There's nothing you can do but work through it. I remember.
Dang.
Now I'm going to say this because it's gonna sound strange. I remember when I was about to
It just
graduate.
sounds hard.
It sounds hard. I know it sounds hard, but see, that's what I'm saying. See, my thing
A
is,
challenge.
it's a challenge. See, my thing is, when you finish with a doctorate, if you really took in that doctorate, you're going to learn how to do research no matter what resources you have. Whether you
Mm.
can get to a computer, whether I got to go to find an old Dewey Decimal System, they don't really use that anymore. But I'm just saying, go to a library and pull up. When you finish your doctorate, if you have 6 months to complete an article or 60 minutes, it don't matter. Your skills should be that good that you can write and put something down. You
Right.
see, and so if you can't do that, see, and to me, that's when those are two of my signs that you may not be a strong student. You see, because when you finish a doctorate, two things you should be able to do is research and write. Okay, you should be able to at least do research, meaning you should be able to study, find something, and find multiple sources, know how to document it, and you should be able to write, be able to articulate how you feel, how you think, have your own philosophy. You don't develop that if somebody's holding your hand telling you how to write all the time. You have to figure that out on your own because you have to develop your own. When I was I hit walls all the time in my doctorate. I want to tell you about the one of the biggest ones that was very simple. This is a very important one. When I started my doctorate, one of my chairs, and he was my homeboy, Mark Grimmick,
Hmm.
Dr. Mark Grimmick, because he was from Tuskegee, Alabama. I'm from Birmingham, so I need to reach out to Mark. He gave me a tip that I thought I heard, that I thought I did right, and then I got my tail handed to me at the end of my doctorate, right as I was trying to graduate, and I realized what he told me was right. I just didn't do it right. He said, Thomas, soon as you start putting your papers and your dissertation in the form it's supposed to be in to go into the system at NC State to graduate. So I said, okay, all right. So I started putting all my papers, learning APA in a consistent format. Okay, I started doing that. I put everything in a consistent format. When I basically passed my dissertation, passed my proposal, passed everything, the only thing I got to do now is do my edits and submit this dissertation. And I tell you, that was the most frustrating aspect of that doctorate because all I had to do was get my dissertation into a template. Bro, a partner helped me, another friend helped me. I had three people who helped me work my dissertation to get it
Hmm.
into the form to be submitted. This is the heartbreaking part. Nothing that they did actually helped.
Mm.
I never told my friends and family that nothing that they did actually helped me. I literally had to go back and undo everything that they did. For real. It was a hard lesson, man, to undo literally everything that was done. And here's why. Because Mark gave me the right instructions, I didn't follow him. He said, put your dissertation in the correct format from the beginning. I was supposed to go to the library website that had a template, and all I had to do was copy and paste.
Mm.
It was the simplest thing. So, man, for 2 weeks, I was struggling, staying up
Oh
late.
man.
Friends over, staying up late, trying to help me do stuff. They brought their laptop. I had mine. I'm sleeping, frustrated, man. I'm like, what is the problem? Only to find out after all of that, and that's the hard lesson. That's a lesson that I want to share with people. When you are in, especially in the higher degree program, you will always have points where you have to work it out on your own, no matter what. And if you don't have that, you're not going to be a strong. You're not going to be a strong professional, because that means you can't. Because in order to figure it out, that means you think on your own.
Mm.
And in order to figure it out, you go. I can't go to somebody always to get help. So that's one of my challenges. I tell people don't be like that 100%, but I say be like that most of the time. I don't, like when I experience difficulty, my initial response is never to ask anybody for help.
Yeah.
When I'm struggling, I'm like, okay, the only kept me in relation. It don't matter to me.
The lesson
It,
here
yeah,
somewhere.
lesson, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. If that
Opportunity to grow.
is opportunity to grow. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't ask for help, because no,
Yeah.
always, I think
Time and place.
we never make it on our own. Notice what I said. You will have moments when you have to figure it out. And that was one, and that was my last moment. And that lesson taught me something. It taught me, because my dissertation was almost 200 pages. So can you
Ooh.
imagine, right? Can you imagine
Ooh.
going back through and going, man, I got to change this, and this, and then going back and changing what people have helped you with? That's the part that's also that's what's hard, because that's the other lesson that I learned. Like, man, was I wrong getting their help? Did they not help me? It's not that they didn't help me, but they didn't help me the way that they thought they did. You see, where they helped me was I had the support, but they still didn't solve my problem. I
Yeah.
had to solve the problem. So yeah, that's one of those lessons, that I can share. That, yeah, I think people, it's not comfortable, but when you get through them, you really do become an independent thinker and a person who can execute and get things done faster.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that. It looked hard. It seemed hard, and I don't want no part of it.